Hi everyone, I am Rachel. I am being treated for depression, anxiety and OCD, and today I decided I might just have a little casual chat about OCD. So I've done a number of Reddit live streams just talking in general about mental health, about my experiences, about various conditions, and I've gotten some great responses from those, and so I thought today I'd do something a little bit different. I'd have a little bit of a chat but focusing primarily on OCD. So I do have a scripted video coming up on my YouTube channel that's Running Saxophonist. You can find the link in my Reddit bio, and it'll be just coming up on YouTube. But while that one will be more scripted and probably a little bit longer, I thought this one can just be a bit of a casual chat focused on OCD, and I'd interact with you guys a bit more. So if you have any questions, any comments related to OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, my experience or your experience, let me know and we can just have a bit of a chat, and hopefully we can educate each other and get this discussion started. So my experience began when I was 10 years old. In fact, I can remember the date. It was July 23rd, 2003. And it for me, the OCD fluctuates with stress, and at that time I was in year 5 and going through a pretty stressful situation, and so this OCD just ramped up, and that's the first time I can ever remember it, and it's certainly the first time it became very, very, very destructive in my life. So for me, when it first began, that was the worst few years in terms of how severe the OCD has been for me. In those first few years, it was taking literally 6, 7, 8 hours out of my day, and it really was very terrifying at the beginning because I had no idea what it was. Suddenly there was just this impulse in my head to do these things, and I had no idea what it was. It's not like a voice, it's nothing like that, it's just more like an impulse. So the way I describe it for anyone who doesn't experience it is it's kind of like an itch. If you don't have OCD, then it's kind of like if you have healthy skin. So you might get an itch and there's this impulse in your head. There's not this voice, it's just this impulse to scratch it, and you scratch it and it goes away. If you have OCD, it's kind of akin to having eczema. So you get this itch, you scratch it, and it goes away for a bit, but then it comes back and it's worse. So you scratch it again, then it comes back and it's worse, and that impulse just continues and continues, and the only way to break the cycle is to not scratch it. But that's a really, really difficult thing to do. And so with OCD, when you try and fight this impulse, it results in the anxiety is just huge, and the current treatment for it is exposure response prevention. Exposure prevention response. I don't know, I could be getting that the wrong way around, but the whole idea is you get this impulse and you just sit with it. You just learn to sit with it. But the problem is that when you're in that place of really, really extreme stress, when you're in that place of really severe OCD, chances are you're not in a very good place mentally in general. So it's really, really difficult to fight this at the best of times, let alone when you're likely at the worst of times. Alright, so we'll get this chat open. My girlfriend has OCD and I don't know how to help. It's debilitating to her. My heart goes out to you. It's such a difficult thing to cope with. My advice would be that professional help is something that is really required, and the thing is there aren't so many medications for it at the moment, and it's really more a matter of sort of, yes, that exposure response prevention that I was talking about. But also talk therapy, that's a major thing, and to sort of work through those thoughts that might be associated with it. So the thing with OCD, the thing that defines it, and this is all written in the DSM, unfortunately I don't have mine on hand, but I will for my dedicated video, which will be up on my YouTube channel. The thing that sort of defines OCD is the presence of obsessions and compulsions. So essentially the obsessions are the thoughts that go behind it. They go behind these actions that you've got the impulse to take, and the compulsion is the actual action. So the thing that began for me and for most people with OCD is that you'll get these thoughts, these impulses to do this thing, and there's a particular reason to do it. So for instance, the one that a lot of people think of is, well, if I don't do this thing, then someone's going to die. And that was definitely the case for me when I first developed it when I was 10. There were all of these thoughts, and your mind's just rushing with it constantly, so it's very, very noisy in there. So it's like, if I don't do this thing, someone's going to die. If I don't do this thing, then my mum's going to be in a car accident. If I don't do this thing, then etc., etc. And in the end, it became a matter of, I wasn't delusional. I knew that these things weren't going to happen, but then it became a case of, but imagine if this thing was to happen. Imagine if you tap this twice, then it would stop your mum from being in a car accident. And so if you don't tap it twice, then that means that you would take that chance of your mum being in a car accident, which just makes you this really selfish and awful person. And again, I knew that it wasn't going to happen, but these thoughts are just running through your mind, and in the end you just think, oh, I'm just going to tap it twice, and it'll make the thoughts go away. So I knew it wasn't going to happen, but this rumination just kept to the point where I was just sick of it, and I just kept doing it. Now I don't have all of those thoughts behind it. I don't have those thoughts, oh, well, someone's going to die if I do it, but the impulse is still there, and the massive anxiety is still there. So back to your initial question, how can you support her? Yes, talk therapy, that is the major thing, and in terms of you personally, it would just be supporting her. I'm going to give a little bit of a story. So when it first developed, I was terrified because I didn't know what this thing in my head was. I was a very anxious kid. I was a depressed kid, but I didn't have a whole lot of knowledge of mental health. And I mean, when you're 10, you generally don't. So I had no idea what this thing was, and I just immediately thought, oh, I'm going insane. I'm going to be sent to an asylum. I can't tell anyone. And I tried to hide it desperately, and I became terrified, absolutely terrified of what was going on with me. It was such a difficult period. And so I tried to hide it for a little bit, but eventually I just went to my mum and I was crying, there's this thing happening in my head and I don't know what it is. She was amazing, and she knew immediately, and it turns out that one of my aunties suffers it really badly as well. And Mum was just amazing, and I'll be going into the full story on my YouTube account. Please go and check that out. But it's actually the whole reason why I remember that date that it started, July 23rd, 2003. But the moment I remember it starting was I was reading through a book, and I was really, really stressed about this book, about finishing this book really, really quickly. So that's where the initial stress came from, among other things. And so I read the first page, and then there was this impulse to read the page again. And that's the first time I remember any of this happening. And I thought, oh, that's weird. Okay, it's like an itch. You know to scratch the itch and it'll go away. So I was like, oh, all right, that's weird. Well, I'll do it again. So I read the page again. The impulse went away. Cool. Went to the next page. Got to the end of that page, and suddenly the impulse is back. And I was like, oh, that's weird again. So I read it again, and I got to the next page, and it was the same thing. And I just became terrified, absolutely terrified by this point. And so my mum, she actually came to my room and lay on my bed with me and held this book in front of us. And she said, okay, are you at the end of this page? And I would say yes. And she said, okay, we're turning the page now. And she did that through so much of this book just to get me through it. She was amazing from the very beginning, and I can truly say that, you know, she has been my biggest support through all of this, and I'm so incredibly grateful to her and her strength, because as I said, I was a terrified 10-year-old and she got me through that. Unfortunately, yes, if you do have someone who struggles with OCD, then all that you can do, you know, if you're not a professional in the field, is just support them. Just know that this is a really, really, really difficult thing that they're going through, and even though it may not seem logical to you, the things that they're doing or the things that they're thinking of doing, just know that in their head it's just as confusing, and they are really, really suffering. And all you can really do is just be there for them. Just let them know, look, I know this is really, really difficult for you, but we are going to get through this, and seek professional help, because you can recover from it. I've never gotten to a place where I'm completely free of it, but I have gotten to a place where I'm able to manage it. So I have, even though, as I said, when it began, it was taking 6, 7, 8 hours of my day, and it was literally ruling my life. There are times when, you know, it's just tiny little things, and sometimes I don't even notice them. At the moment, it's only taking a few hours out of my day, and to be honest, you know, there are so many people who are going through so much worse in this world. And I've been at this for 16 years now. I've kind of just learnt to manage it. You know, you learn to deal with the hand you're dealt. Right now it's quite severe for me, and I am struggling, and I would say that it's probably the second worst that it's ever been, since that time when it was 10, but I'm just thankful every single day that it's not as bad as it was. Alright, depends on the level of OCD. There is mild and severe, definitely, and there's actually this other condition called OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which is actually a condition that a lot of people will experience and not seek help for, because they don't see it as an issue in their life, and a lot of people actually see it as a positive in their life, and unfortunately it's actually the thing that the media seems to think is OCD, so is obsessive compulsive disorder. So people will say things like, I'm so clean, I am so OCD about this, which firstly, that makes no sense. That in terms of vocabulary, that makes no sense. It's like saying, I am so diabetes about this, so please don't say that. Secondly, it can be a little bit insulting for those of us who really do suffer from it really, really severely. But anyway, so yeah, a lot of people in the media will say, you know, I am so OCD about this, I am so OCD about that, I am so clean, therefore I have OCD, I am so organized, therefore I have OCD. And as I said, a lot of people actually see it as a positive in their life. So a lot of people will view these people as workaholics, or, you know, they study a lot, and it will in some way benefit from them. A huge amount of people in really top careers and people at the top of their field do suffer from it. The thing between OCPD and OCD though is that OCD causes a lot of stress in the individual's life, and as I said, when it began for me, it caused me so much distress and so much disruption in my life. And yes, there have been aspects where it could be a positive in my life. I studied immensely hard, and got good results due to that. But then again, on the other hand, as I said, it's just disrupted so much of my life. And it's kind of sad in a way, if you think of it, that I've kind of learnt to manage it taking 3 hours and 4 hours out of my day, and just being grateful that it's no longer taking 6, 7, 8 hours out of my day. For me, when it first began, the worst time was always before bed, because, as I said, I was always a really, really anxious kid, and bedtime was a really, really anxious time for me. So it took me, literally at the worst, it would take me 3 hours to get through the rituals before I could even go to bed. I can't even recall what all the rituals were, but it took me 3 hours, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. It was just horrendous. So my heart goes out to anyone who does experience OCD. OCD is very mentally draining. I deal with it every day. It's exhausting every day. It's absolutely exhausting, because the thoughts there, they just go around and around and around. And as I said, I'm really grateful at a point right now where I'm not swamped by these thoughts. But when I was 10, I definitely was, because you're overthinking everything. And there was a time, for a few months at that beginning, where there was very little else that I could focus on. There was very little else that I could do. In a very strong way, it was almost impossible for me to function in daily life. As I said, now these thoughts aren't so huge, and now I don't have all of these thoughts behind the actions, and now, the actions aren't so major, and I am able to fight them to some degree. And so I am able to function in daily life, I am able to study. I do have a job, and, looking at me on good days, you wouldn't even know that there was anything there. And in the real world, out there, the amount of people suffering from OCD is enormous, but so many people don't talk about it, because a lot of people see it as being really, see it as being really embarrassing, and it's something that the world just doesn't understand. And again, that's a major reason why I wish people wouldn't say I am so OCD about this, because it really downplays the huge issue that it is, and the huge impact that it has in people's lives. Much love to you and the strength it took you to even get to this point. Thank you. As I said, there are so many people with so many worse conditions out there, and in such a worse place, and I'm just grateful every single day that I'm not back to where I was when I was 10, because there are people with OCD that even into their adulthood, it is literally debilitating. I'm trying to think of a movie, I can't recall it, but it essentially, but there's a character with OCD, and he cannot function in daily life because of all of these rituals. And it's actually really quite emotional to watch from someone who has been in that situation before, because to see someone else suffering from it, it's just heartbreaking, because it really is such a difficult thing to do. It really is such a difficult thing to deal with. And as I said, my heart goes out there to anyone who has ever experienced it, and to anyone who is supporting someone who is going through it, because I also know that from the outside it's a really, really confusing thing, it doesn't make sense. Why would you have to flick that light switch on 36 times? It makes no sense. And from the inside, you're also thinking, this makes no sense, but I have to do this. So yeah, my heart does go out to anyone out there who is suffering from it. As someone who has just been recently diagnosed with OCD this past January, thank you so much for speaking out about it, because it means the world to me. I'm only a few months into my recovery, but I'm determined to get better. You're amazing. Thank you. You're really kind for saying that. I'm really nothing special. As I said, the amount of people who do struggle with OCD is just horrendous, and I'm so sorry that you are going through it. But yeah, as I said, you know, it certainly is treatable, and it certainly is manageable, and I am proof of that. No, I've never fully recovered. No, I've never fully been free from it. But I have been at a place where I barely even notice it. And while when I am really stressed, it does crop up quite severely, when I'm not, and when I am in a good place, it almost doesn't bother me. And as I said, you know, when I was 10, it certainly would have been clear to anyone around me. But now, no, most days you wouldn't even know that I suffer from this condition. God bless you. Oh, thank you. You too. Good luck your recovery. Thanks for chatting. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself too. Everyone out there. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up. It looks like you're getting help now. Is that having an effect on you? To be honest, with the OCD, it's the condition that I've never really felt that I have received a whole lot of help with. And that's certainly not a complaint about the help I've received. I mean, I've worked with some incredible professionals. I've gone to some incredible talks on it and heard from some incredible people. But for me, OCD is the one that I've sort of had to learn to manage myself. And that's not to say that there isn't treatment available. That's not to say there isn't help available. But for me, I think partly because I was diagnosed when I was quite young, I just had to kind of learn to deal with it myself and sort of figure out my own ways of fighting it. As I said, I have had amazing support from my mum, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And she is a major reason that I've been able to fight it. But it really has come from within that I've sort of learnt to manage it. And I think for everyone, you kind of have to develop your own ways of managing it. I also know that it fluctuates with stress levels, and because I know that it has, you know, there have been periods where it's been less for me, it's also really the one condition that I do have full faith in that I can get to a better place with it. You know, there are other things like depression and anxiety where I don't have so much faith because it is more of an unknown. But for me with the OCD, you know, I can be thinking, oh my God, this is horrendous right now. You know, today it has taken up so many hours of my day. But I know that in the past, there has been a time where it has been better. And so whether it's been because I've been fighting it, whether it's been because I have actually been fighting it, or simply because of different factors in my life which have made me a bit less stressed, I do know that there have been times where it has been better, and because of that I do have faith that, well, maybe it'll be better again in the future. Alright guys, so this has been a lovely chat. Thank you so much to everyone who has commented. You've all been so lovely. I hope that I've helped to spread some understanding, but more than that, I hope that any of you who are out there suffering OCD, this has given you a little bit of company, let you know that you're not so alone, and that things can get better. I am proof of that, and I hope that you can see that. My heart goes out to you if you are struggling with this, because I know how difficult it is and how horrendous it is. But yes, you are certainly not alone in this, and it is a real fight, but you can get through it. I am going to be having a more dedicated video to OCD over on my YouTube channel. It's Running Saxophonist. The link is in my Reddit bio. please go over there and check me out over there. That's also how I'm going to be communicating with you guys. If you want to talk to me, just in the comment section over there. Reddit, I'm having a little bit of issue with at the moment, just in terms of the Wi-Fi being a bit spotty, so I will be communicating over there. If you are more interested in checking out what I've got to say, head over there, subscribe, and I'd love to chat with you there. Again, my heart goes out to anyone out there who is struggling with OCD. I am not a clinician, so please seek out professional help if you are struggling. As always, take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and I will see you later. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.